everyone. I'm Emily DeLay, a first-year master's student in fashion apparel studies at the University of Delaware. Today, I have the honor of moderating the 2025 OECD Due Diligence in the Garment Industry Forum side session. Today's session focuses on due diligence education for Gen Z, preparing future fashion leaders for sustainable and socially responsible apparel sourcing. The topics discussed are incredibly important and relevant as Gen Z, like myself, will start to take center stage in shaping the future of apparel sourcing and social responsibility practices in the industry. This panel brings together some of the most respected voices in the fashion and apparel industry who are actively shaping the future of sustainable and responsible sourcing practices. Allow me to introduce our esteemed panelists. Today, we are joined by Matthias Canape, Head of Fibers, Textiles, and Clothing Unit at the International Trade Center, Lori Rando, Senior Director of Sustainable Product and Human Rights at Macy's, Julia Hughes, the President of the United States Fashion Industry Association, Megan Dawson-Eli, Manager of Product Sustainability at Tapestry, and finally, Dr. Sheng Liu, Professor and Graduate Director of Fashion and Apparel Studies at the University of Delaware. Thank you all so much for joining us. We really look forward to an engaging and insightful conversation. So if everybody's ready, we can now begin with part one, industry perspectives on due diligence and education skill sets. My first question is for Julie. Julie, you had the unique opportunity to work with many U.S. fashion companies and their sourcing executives. From your observation, how important are due diligence, compliance, and responsible sourcing for fashion companies today?
Thanks so much for the opportunity to join today's discussion, and I'm really pleased to share my perspective. I'm based in Washington, D.C., so right now our focus is on tariffs and trade disruption for the most part, but due diligence, compliance, and especially responsible sourcing remain some of the top priorities for brands and retailers. These are some of the key topics I hear about from members every day. And I have to give a plug. We also see this clearly in USFIA's benchmarking surveys. Last year, the 11th year of the survey that we conduct with Dr. Liu, 82% of the respondents said they plan to allocate more resources towards sustainability and compliance than in the previous year. And maybe more important, almost all the respondents said they will either maintain or increase their operational budget to support enhanced sustainability and compliance efforts. And that budgetary commitment, I think, really reflects the whole of brand and company commitments to move forward and to support. How can we guarantee that our companies are meeting the goals? And also, we're really offering an opportunity for our Gen Z customers and employees to come on how to participate.
Thank you so much, Julie, for your insights. And so would you say that really the general theme you're getting from these companies is that they're willing and ready to invest rather than this idea of, dragging their feet or hesitation?
I would definitely, I definitely think that companies are ready and willing to invest. And I know we'll be hearing from company experts as well who will share their story. But even, talking to companies after the Trump administration pulled the US out of the Paris Agreement, you still hear from companies are not dropping their initiatives for sustainability. Indeed, one of the things that I hear about the most is how can we get information about best practices? What are our colleagues doing, particularly in the circularity space? How can we be more engaged? So I definitely see the commitment moving forward, despite what might be happening on the political scene.
Thank you so much. My next question is actually for Matthias. Matthias, you have visited many garment factories and vendors that make products for U.S. fashion brands and retailers. What is your observation about the growing importance and complexity of trade compliance, due diligence, and responsible sourcing? I'm sorry, Matthias. I think you're muted.
Don't want to interrupt, so I muted myself. Thanks for having me and for the opportunity to talk a little bit, giving the perspective. Yes, I have worked with many well-developing country manufacturers, and I can really say that due diligence has been taken quite seriously because companies start understanding that it's important for them. It's good for business, but of course, it's also because clients ask for it, and also because there is regulations coming up quite strongly, especially if you look into Europe and where we live, where I live. But there's also a strong sentiment that costs are being pushed down the supply chain to them rather than being shared between brands and manufacturers. And you have the saying or this quote also from the International Apparel Federation, which I think is real, saying that if you're on red, you cannot invest in green. No, so brands also need to consider if to contribute. And I'm glad that Julie was mentioning it, that there's more investment into in environmental and social sustainability. There needs to be a collaboration also from the brand side to support manufacturers in going green. Apart from this, responsible sourcing is not only about due diligence, very important and very necessary. It's also about an adequate price, no? And because an adequate price in the end is what allows green investments, which allows a living wage, and what also allows a decent profit for a manufacturer. But it's a very difficult aspect in a system that's very transactional. I think the biggest problem the industry has, and which captures a lot of capital, if could be freed, could solve this problem, is overproduction. ITC and IAF, International Apparel Federation, brought out a publication on this last October, and we are now working with the manufacturer from Sri Lanka and the brand from the US to show how this could actually be done, how you could reduce inventory all along the supply chain and free capital, increase capital productivity, move from a transactional to a shared risk, shared profit kind of collaboration between brands and retailers. One last point I want to make is all these things are very difficult to do, especially for small and medium-sized enterprises. And we are an SME development agency, so very much to our heart. So we see problems coming up for small and medium-sized companies to comply with all these regulations. And then their perspective also need to be taken into consideration when we talk about all this due diligence. I stop here, I think.
Thank you. That was a very incredible answer. And it's incredibly interesting to hear your perspective. You know, I really loved that you shared the banyan tree article. I think it talks a little bit about the points that you brought up in this question. So just a follow-up for you, you know, how I know you talked about the barriers for small and medium-sized companies. How long do you think it might take to actually see, you know, these shifts towards business model changes from, you know, the perspective of just solving a simple problem to, like the article mentioned, full entire changes in the business model? How long do you think that would actually take?
Well, it takes a shift in the mindset, and maybe you and other people that coming into the industry could look into this. It's not so easy because I think there are structural barriers in the supply chain in the way, also put in by brands that were very transactional. So if you buy through a buying house or sourcing office, their incentives is a reduced cost to a large extent, not only, but to a large extent. So they don't look at from the perspective of the top of the management to look at the overall profitability. Rather, what is not what the cost of a product is produced is important, but what the cost of a product sold should be more important. But this is a top management view that one needs to see and overcome the internal barriers that has been set up of this complex supply chain overall. Just for Julie, you wanted to have, you said it would be good to learn of best practices. So hopefully by the second part of this year, we'll come up with a kind of a how to do or playbook that we do together with the manufacturer and the brand, and that we will be happy to share, of course, widely in the industry, but that could be something that could help in overcoming these structural problems.
Thank you so
We'll
much.
follow up with you then.
Please.
Thank you so much. And I really love this hopeful perspective because as Gen Z myself, I truly believe that this is our mindset. We're rather than focusing on the problems, focusing on the hopeful aspects and the innovations and improvements that we can, ourselves come to implement. So thank you so much for that wonderful answer. My next question is for Lori and Megan. Lori and Megan, both of you have extensive experience in apparel compliance, due diligence, and sustainability. Could you share examples of how fashion companies manage these areas today? For instance, what are some of your key responsibilities or tasks in your current role?
I guess I'll go first. First of all, thank you so much for having me too. I think I'm really grateful to be here today, and good morning and good afternoon to everyone. At Macy's, we really strive to embed corporate sustainability throughout the enterprise, and that's to support our sales growth strategies, which I think is an important point that I heard previously mentioned, while also improving our company's ESG performance. And it's through these efforts we care for the people who make our products and manage our environmental impact. And to do this, we curate and create sustainable products and services so people and the planet can thrive together. Our sustainability strategy is built around 4 key pillars. It's the environment, human rights, products, and governance. And my role as the Senior Director of Sustainability touches all of these pillars. We are continuously assessing and monitoring the progress we are making towards achieving our goals. And an important part of this role is to work with our suppliers, our vendors, our market brands, nonprofits, third-party certifiers, a whole host of characters to accomplish our sustainability ambitions and to really stay informed about what's happening in the industry. This also means staying engaged with our merchants, our sourcing teams, government affairs, legal and communications. So we really have a wide range of people that we're working with on a daily basis. It's how we operate, and we're really intentional about our decisions, and we consider our responsibility and impact carefully so that people and planet can thrive together.
Just to echo, sorry.
Go ahead, Megan.
Just to echo Lori, thank you so much for having me today. I'm Megan from Tapestry. Just to share a couple of tactical things that I work on that relate to due diligence, compliance, and sustainability. I manage our sustainable marketing claims process in collaboration with our compliance and legal teams. So day to day supporting our brands, we work together to review claims and support documentation for hang tags, websites, press releases, and more. These claims are usually product specific, so speaking to environmentally preferred materials used. And in order to make those claims, we need supporting documentation from third-party industry standards. So we work really closely with our product development and materials teams to collect that information from suppliers, and then work with our legal and compliance teams to make sure we feel comfortable with how we are showing up to the customers describing these attributes. Also, another example I wanted to share that's more of the innovative space is that I have been working with our teams on using post-consumer materials. So we have supply chain partners that will source post-consumer denim, wash them, cut them into panels, and then we will create products with that repurposed denim fabric. At Coach, we launched this for the first time in spring 24 in our Soho bag, and it was our first time repurposing with a supply chain partner at scale, which is really different than using recycled or other environmentally preferred materials because there's no standardization when we're looking at post-consumer. So it was a great opportunity for the sustainability and compliance compliance team to come together and do something innovative, work with our product development teams on a checklist of when we're using post-consumer materials, what does this look like? What teams do we need to get involved earlier in the process to figure out labeling, testing, material composition, and then ultimately marketing claims. And I really love that Mateus talked about the different opportunities that we have to partner with our suppliers, because we did take this one step forward, and we also did a critically reviewed LCA with our supplier that is doing this repurposing process for us, which found that the repurposed denim has up to 80% reduced greenhouse gas emissions and up to 95% less water consumption compared to conventional first use denim. So just a couple examples of the way that at Tapestry, sustainability, compliance, all these different initiatives are a part of my day-to-day life.
Wow, those answers were both awesome. I really liked the mentioning of collaboration. I myself have seen benefits for personal benefits, as Macy's has offered projects for me to work on. I was able to work on the extended producer legislation project. And so it's just awesome to see as Gen Z that, not only are we being engaged through projects, but as we look forward to entering the workforce, there's different ways that we can collaborate with one another. One final question for everyone. Anyone on the panel, please feel free to jump in. This question is, are there apparel job opportunities in due diligence, compliance, and responsible sourcing? And are they growing?
I'm happy to answer that one. I just actually was listening to a webinar yesterday where this topic came up, and I think, there is definitely a changing geopolitical landscape that's going on right now. And I think at least for the United States, we might be moving away from federal legislation, but the states are picking it up, and it is actually making it more difficult, more complicated to comply. And you mentioned extended producer responsibility. That's a great example of how it's being launched state by state by state, and all of those different disclosures are slightly different. And so our team has to keep pace with all of that. And so I don't see jobs shrinking anytime soon. And I do see the possibility that they could grow and even shift to where they report into. Right now, we report into supply chain, but you see teams shifting where they're reporting into either legal or potentially even finance, because it's really getting down to what is the ROI. And I think going back to Matthias's point earlier about, companies have to be out of the red in order to be green. And so constantly looking at these initiatives and understanding what the impact to the business is, and being able to show that positive impact, financial positive impact to leadership, is going to be really important going forward.
And this is Shen, and may I jump in as well? And, I work with our Gen Z students, and from my observation, they demonstrate growing interest in finding a job related to sustainability, compliance, and trade. And also, I want to say, it's very important to really to shape their interest in these areas, especially for our fashion students. Fashion-related job, the conventional jobs are about merchandising, branding, but because of many exciting industry partner projects, working with Laurie, Megan, Julie, and also in the past two years, we had a great opportunity working with WIDA Academy, the Washington International Trade Association. They are currently organized several events to invite policymakers and industry leaders to share their stories, in the area of trade, compliance, sustainability, so that our students can see, oh, well, being a fashion student, actually, there are also many non-fashionable aspects of the industry really needs talents, needs people with very professional knowledge, and also can have a big impact on the industry. Yeah. So from my perspective, once again, there's a growing opportunity related to sustainability, compliance, and also I would love to see more partnership with the industry to shape our students their passion and their interest in these areas.
Would anybody else like to jump in on this final question? If not, we can move on. All right, I also just wanted to add to what Sheng said. It is something that's personally incredible to be presented these opportunities to learn about these topics. For me, I remember it wasn't until Dr. Liu's class that I actually walked out and had absolutely no idea what was going on. It was the first class that I really felt challenged in terms of, I wanted to learn more. This is so complex. How are we going to solve some of these issues? And so that was the first time that I really felt there was a place for me in the fashion industry. So, just echoing what Dr. Liu said, it's really great to get an opportunity to learn about the job opportunities in this space. So now transitioning to part 2, due diligence education for Gen Z. My first question will be for Sheng. Sheng, given the growing importance and complexity of due diligence, compliance, and responsible sourcing to fashion companies, how is fashion education addressing these issues for Gen Z today? Are these topics adequately covered in curriculum?
Thank you. I think this is a very important topic. Two comments. One is I do find that our fashion students these days are now exposed, be exposed to the topics of sustainability, compliance, these very important topics. For example, here at UD, every semester I teach FASH 455 apparel trading or sourcing, one of the least fashionable fashion course in our department. And I just check my course plan 5 years ago, not even 8 or 7 years ago, but just 5 years ago. And I do see this semester I cover many more topics related to this field. But at the same time, I think it's more than just about the time and the total the total amount of work related to these topics, but also the complexity of these topics. We no longer simply just telling students, oh, you will need to care about who is making your garments and in which condition the garment is made, but rather we now include more technical and the specific issues, like how to make sure there's no forced labor in a product we imported. Similar to what Megan mentioned, companies these days, they are, growingly interested in carrying clothing made from recycled materials. So in our course, we will examine what's the implications for sourcing, right? And also, how to make sure companies know their tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers. So truly, I think, from the educational part, we're making more kind of emphasis on sustainability and compliance. And then I have to admit, before we have this conversation, I thought I did a really great job in educating our students on these topics. But after listening to our panelists, I just realized this truly, this area is growing, it's evolving, and I still, have a lot of, gaps out there. I haven't had a chance to cover many topics mentioned by our panelists. And this really reminds me of one point I have is because this area is so evolving, even though I'm really passionate about this topic, I need collaboration from the industry. Okay, for example, I've had the great opportunity working with Laurie, working with Macy's over the past 2 years to work on some projects. So Macy's very kindly allow our students to work with their team to solve some real world problems. I love it. Our students love it for 3 major reasons. One is we know what topics actually, matters to the industry. So often, if you just read academic papers, maybe you're not, maybe you just missed the big picture, but really the industry partners, these leading brands and retailers can really inform us what they actually care about. Second is really valuable resources. As an educator, as a researcher, we have the access to many materials, but also, for the area of sustainability, the industry actually, contain a lot of data, a lot of unique resources, and only through these partnerships, it can really give our students some hands-on experiences. Last but not least is the interest. Students like to work on real world problems. And I think these industry partnership programs really create this, this kind of, wonderful experiences with lasting impact on our students. So my point here is, because of the complexity of, of sustainability, compliance, traceability, so we need more industry partnership so as to improve the quality of education. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you. And I definitely want to echo what you mentioned. I think having opportunities to, rather than, take this theory, but really execute on it. And I think that, kind of leans into what Matthias was saying about a mindset shift, a perspective shift on how we approach and problem solving, really, for these major problems. So I definitely agree that these projects have been really great to actually implement some of those skills, but if there's opportunity to do more, I think that's how we're really going to innovate within the fashion industry and become leaders. My next question is for Lori. Sheng mentioned the importance of industry partnerships in due diligence, compliance, and sustainability education. I know Macy's is highly dedicated to this area. Could you share your perspectives and some recent successful projects?
Sure, I'd be happy to. This is one of my passion areas. So Macy's has a commitment to empower the curiosity and confidence of young people on their journey to becoming those future leaders. And so in November of 2023, Macy's launched the Sustainability Research Project Program and invited university students to come and tackle some of our most pressing sustainable opportunities. Students were invited to submit proposals for one or more sustainability topics that included things like circular innovation, packaging, and human rights risk. We ended up selecting 2 universities and provided funding for research, discovery, and implementation of the solutions. Additionally, a group of selected students who worked on the project joined the summer internship program, and we have a pretty robust program in place. And that was to support the implementation and continued research. So they got to do the research, then they got to be part of the action. And this past year, students were given the opportunity to work on a real project, real business impacts, and that was EPR. Together, they worked with internal teams to prepare for the upcoming legislation. And having those students do the research and be part of the implementation of the solution wasn't only valuable for our students, but it was really valuable for our Macy's internal teams. Like, this is brand new for so many of us. We're all on a learning curve. And I feel like within our world of sustainability, it's this constant learning curve. Some of us have been out of school for a while, so we can always take some tips from the students on best ways to do research. I think it also really helped us identify how we can collaborate with internal teams, because part of the project was talking to teams that may not necessarily be touching sustainability all the time, and how to really work better together. So it wasn't just what we learned about the project and the needs itself, but just this whole idea of how do we continue to embed sustainability. It really is our goal to create a brighter future, and we want to empower more voice, more choice, and really more ownership, not only for our colleagues, but for our customers and our communities. And we really feel that the future leader part is such an important part and such an important area. And the way that we can just gather more information. I know you mentioned like learning what's happening at the corporate level and what we need to be doing. But I think the reverse is that we want to know what's happening, at that young leadership level. What's important to you, because we're all in this together, and that's how we're going to come together and solve some of these problems.
Thank you so much. And I actually want to thank you for giving me the opportunity, because I was someone who personally was able to work on EPR legislation. And I will say from experience that it is definitely something that shows and demonstrates this idea of theory versus practice. I think a lot of times Gen Z people view sustainability, especially consumers outside of the fashion industry, they just view sustainability as, well, let's just make it more sustainable. Same thing, kind of approaching the EPR, if I'm going to be honest, reading the legislation. I was thinking, and the team was thinking, well, let's just collect more data. Let's just do this. Let's just do that. When realizing the actual executing and implementing and running a business is a lot more complex than a sentence of let's just do blank. So it really was a great opportunity to kind of, shift our mindsets a little bit. And it definitely tested us, and I definitely grew from the process. So thank you so much for that answer and for the opportunity. My next question is for Megan. Megan, based on your career path so far, what are your reflections on the best practices for engaging Gen Z in sustainability education? Do you have any suggestions for curriculum development or fostering industry partnerships?
Absolutely. Great question. I have done a lot of educational experiences for our employees up to this point, and I found that there are 3 steps that are really useful when educating them, and they are educate, engage, and activate. So first stage, identifying what opportunities and courses can I have them take that is focused on sustainability content, whenever possible, trying to make it hands-on and interactive, so it is going to be something that is more memorable for them. The second part being engaged, so asking for their feedback on the session and the training and asking how it could be helpful for their role, as well as what other functions should take this course. I think, Lori was talking about it earlier. We are in such a collaborative environment that they might be at one part of the business, but they would really need someone else on the other side to be able to unlock some of these challenges. And then the last part is activate. So what are they going to do with this new knowledge that we've given them? How will it impact their job? Is there a project that they can work on that allows them to use this knowledge? I think sometimes it can be really disheartening to go and learn about a topic, but feel like there's nothing you can actively do to take away and actually apply it to your job. So I've been working with folks across the business in this kind of 3-step routine of activating them and having them then take on some type of project with me so they feel like they're seeing how their learning can be a part of their day-to-day world. And then when it comes to curriculum development, I love this question. I think it would be great if fashion programs taught industry preferred material standards like the Global Recycled Standard and the Global Organic Textile Standard to students, especially those that are working in materials and product development functions. I work day to day with those functions, and having them understand more about chain of custody and these third-party certifications would be fantastic. I also think courses on circularity would be great for design students, training them to think about end of life of products from the beginning.
Thank you so much, Megan. That was an incredible answer. My next question is for Matthias. Under your leadership, ITC has launched a Global Textile Academy, which provides valuable practical training for small businesses, policymakers, and business support organizations in the apparel sector, particularly in developing countries. Can you give us an overview of this platform and its impact? How do you think this platform can be further expanded to attract more Gen Z members and empower them to gain practical due diligence knowledge and skill sets? I can repeat any part of that question if you need me to.
No, I'll try to see what I can, let's say. Anyway, thanks very much for mentioning the Global Textile Academy.com, which is basically a compendium of trainings and resources that targets the requirement of the industry. Our main clientele, by definitions, are not Gen Z students, but rather manufacturers and business support organizations in developing countries. But I think it's also very, very interesting for you and other students in the US, but also in developing countries to look at these. We're gradually building it up. We have about 3,000 users now, I think, all over the world. This is a combination of normal trainings, of e-learning courses, and other learning courses. We have e-learning courses now available on the traditional kind of trainings, which is garment costing, full garment costing, it's material sourcing, it's knowledge about fabrics and yarns, it's lean manufacturing, is one of our very successful kind of learning trainings. all tailored specifically to the apparel industry. So there's nothing which is not apparel related. And it's all developed by practitioners in the industry. In December, we added a new one, which is to coming back to what was just mentioned by Megan. We created a new training course on business model for circularity in textiles and clothing. It's a two-day kind of course that we launched was very successful in Sri Lanka with about 70 or 80 people, trained a lot of trainers in different universities and training institutions that are there. And they are now rolling it out to many more companies and students. It's all about circularity. It covers post-industrial as post-consumer. But frankly, in all the countries we work in, post-consumer circularity is not the issue. It's an issue, yes, but it's not been tackled. I think the first thing for the industry is to do it post-industrial, at least in the manufacturing kind of world. The interesting thing about this is also, and I think you mentioned it also a little bit, Megan, is that we developed a kind of, together with our SME Trade Academy. So ITC also has a umbrella program, which is called SME Trade Academy, which is hundreds of different learnings about all kinds of sectors, all related to SME development and trade. They developed a kind of what they call scalable workshop methodology, where the actual technical content is created by artificial intelligence. Well, not the content itself, but it's been created. Avatars are being created, and avatars in videos are teaching the very technical stuff. This reduces quite a lot of time. With all due respect, Cheng, an avatar can put the video can provide the technical content in a shorter period of time than you could do in the classroom. And the actual teacher is then actually more a moderator of the discussions afterwards. Also something what Megan was saying, no? Have a fruitful discussions of what does it mean for you? How can you do this? Do you have examples? These kind of things, which got this stimulation, also what we saw in Sri Lanka among the audience was great. So everybody was chipping in with examples from their own perspective, and making this, apart from the learning of the technical content, a very interesting kind of learning experience. And I think this is also probably something, I don't know, you tell me, but which could attract more Gen Zs actually to go through this kind of things, because they actually can also interact with the system. They can answer questions, they get answers which are AI created, but nevertheless they get answers immediately if it's, for example, an e-learning tool. So, and in terms of the actual academy, I mentioned at the beginning, it's from the perspective of the manufacturing world. And I think this makes it also very interesting, hopefully for you and the students, Gen Z students, because I do not know, but I think from the discussions also I heard, you need also to understand the perspective of the manufacturing side, which maybe is not so much taught. I can't judge, but it's not so much taught than the perspective of the buying side. And this academy is written or designed from the perspective of the manufacturing side. I'll leave it at this.
Thank you so much. It actually is quite fascinating as someone with that is a Gen Z. You know, like you just mentioned, I do believe that we tend to focus more on post-consumer textile waste and how can we solve areas and make solutions for that. I really do think it would be fascinating to learn more about the manufacturing world, and particularly, I think as somebody who always preaches that, you know, I think that we need a more holistic approach when we create solutions to these problems, rather than just one perspective. I definitely think Gen Z, we really need to be challenged more to shift our perspectives like this, as you mentioned. So I definitely think it would attract more Gen Z people, and I not only think it would attract them, but I think it would benefit them as they critically think and problem solve when they enter the industry. So thank you so much. My next question is for Julie. The U.S. Fashion Industry Association is a valuable educational platform for your member companies. Could you share some best practices for keeping your members informed about the latest due diligence practices and emerging issues that companies should be aware of?
Sure. Thanks a lot for that question. And it's a slightly different perspective, of course, from an association. So one of our core priorities, of course, is to provide information to our members and to the industry at large. So, mainly we communicate with our members through emails whenever there is news. News might be something that's happening, like a trade war, or it might be something that's happening in sustainability, especially some of the reports and analysis that have come out recently. So we send a lot of emails to our members. Last year, we sent almost 200 emails, 199, which is a lot of emails for 1 year for each business day. And while the email updates only go to members, I think it's really important that we have a commitment to share information with the industry and the public at large. So while our emails are only available for members who are companies, our webinars are usually free of charge for anybody from the public. So some of our webinars might be focused again on trade policy or other more technical issues that aren't really relevant for this audience today. But we also do webinars that focus on sustainability and best practices and opportunities that are available for companies to help support their due diligence or their compliance or sustainability. So for example, next month, we have a webinar that's called Fashion and Forensics, and it's going to focus on supply chain tracking and isotopic testing as possible best practices for some of the things that companies are tracking. And I want to mention, because we also have done a lot of work on one of the issues that I think is really important and is a little bit tangential to due diligence and compliance, but that's eliminating forced labor in the apparel supply chain, which I think is a real priority for our members and obviously a goal for the world at large. And we have spent a lot of time on that with information that we are sharing with best practices, and also a ad hoc industry coalition where we bring service providers and colleagues together to talk about how to solve these issues. Because I think we talked about holistic and how we can reach out to different elements of the industry. I think that's a really important part of what associations can help us do, and hopefully get input. We have done some seminars that focus on research that's been done at universities, including University of Delaware, and we definitely want to continue that going forward too.
Thank you so much, Julie. Okay, so if anybody has any additional comments, they can add them now. If not, we can move on to part 3, Vision for the Future. Everybody good? Okay, perfect. So my first question is for Megan. Megan, as you step into the management role and work closely with Gen Z associates on sustainability issues, what changes would you and your Gen Z colleagues like to bring to the fashion world? What is your vision for how the fashion industry should address sustainability and social responsibility over the next decade?
Great question. I would say to continue to harness the power of collaboration for sustainability. One team cannot do it all. I believe that bringing together different functions across the fashion industry will help us innovate so that we can work towards a better future for our planet. At Tapestry, I think that our work with Coachtopia is a great example of that. The Coach sub-brand was founded with the mission to help advance a circular fashion system, and it's an ongoing journey for us, one that prioritizes progress over perfection, and everyone in this industry has a part to play in helping advance our sustainability initiatives. They just need to be given the tools and the opportunities to learn more about the challenges and understand how they can make an impact in their role in their department.
Thank you so much. My next question is for Shang. As an educator, what is your vision for further engaging Gen Z fashion professionals in due diligence education and preparing them to shape a more sustainable and socially responsible world?
Sure. First of all, I want to thank all the panelists for sharing your knowledge, your vision with me, and I'm surely, feel very, inspired by your comments and your experiences. I do have some crazy ideas in mind after listening to, all your great stories and experiences. One is, I would like to apply for an internship next summer. It may sound crazy how a tenure faculty want to compete with his students for internship, but I do feel it's very important. If we want to offer quality education on, sustainability, compliance, due diligence in this field, we need educators to be knowledgeable, to know what's actually happening in the real world. And I don't think I can do that simply by reading papers. That's the reality. Okay, I think, or I will, encourage, leading fashion brands, retailers, international organizations to consider something called faculty internship or maybe faculty visiting opportunity to really give us an opportunity to learn what's happening in the real world. And related, that's the second point. I want to lecture less in the future about sustainability. Okay, I do not mean I want to cover this topic less. No, my point here is I want to, use more engaging, okay, more collaborative approach, in the educational process for this topic. Because, as our panelist just mentioned, even within a company, they now require more collaboration, okay, across different functional team in a company to address the issue of sustainability. The same thing here. I would like to use more engaging method, instead of just reading an article, but maybe a case study, a simulation, a hands-on project, right? And to really not only to give students some technical knowledge on sustainability, on compliance, but also to give them a vision, to really to challenge them to think about what kind of world you would like to create in the future. What are some of the most important changes you'd like to make, to ensure that we can, gradually solve the grand challenges facing our society, especially in our industry. Things like so many pollution, right? And make sure we will have a more balanced relationship between, different industry sectors. And also equally important, I will definitely was looking for additional opportunity to partner with industry. I think there are so many opportunities out there, including many resources already there. Just we may not fully realize it's there. Like Matthias mentioned about the academy. I think many resources actually can be super beneficial for now students. Don't forget, our students, our Gen Z students, they will become the future sourcing manager. If we're talking about how to shape a more balanced and constructive relationship between buyer and their supplier, our students is the starting point. If we can really engage them with small and medium-sized enterprises from these apparel supplying countries at the beginning, I'm sure this impact will be lasting, and we can really do something transformative and with huge impacts in the future. And just to sum up, I think educating educating Gen Z is a meaningful investment to make. And we definitely can see a lot of, return of investment, in this, in this field. So I will, once again call for our, industry partners to work more closely with us and make sure that we can have the talents with the sufficient knowledge and also passion, in this field. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And as somebody who is currently a student of yours, I would definitely agree that having these opportunities would be wonderful. I always think to myself, once that I learned something, oh my goodness, finally I'm the expert on this. And then after being on today's call with you, it's a good feeling to know there's so much more to learn. And I'm a self-proclaimed nerd, so I'm excited to learn all of it. Finally, my last question is for Lori, Matthias, and Julie. Julie, from your perspective, what are the opportunities or new approaches to further strengthen industry-academic partnerships on due diligence, compliance, and sustainability education?
I guess I'll go first. Okay, so I just want you to know, Sheng, I took a note. I have it in my book here. We need to have some kind of academic internship
Thank you
programs.
so much.
We'll see what we can do there. But I just want to say that, we believe so strongly in this work, and we've seen such great things come out of it that we are going to expand our partnership with more academic institutions to help conduct us help us conduct more research. The Macy's Inc. sustainability team, we understand why it's so important to stay engaged with all our resources and leveraging that amazing young talent to scale and create an essential framework for sustainability across the industry. We have a unique opportunity as Macy's. We can amplify our impact just by our position. And we take that as an accountability of ours to continue to do that and continue to grow these programs, empowering our future leaders nationwide. I think, taking away some of the conversation that I've heard on this call today, we got a little bit of everybody here, right? We got industry, we got academic, we got, stakeholders throughout the industry. And I think that, I talked to all of them, and I couldn't do my job if I wasn't talking to everybody in this room. Because everybody has a piece of information, and this is just the way we're going to continue to grow. I also just want to add too, I think that it is important to have that practical experience. And I think the more that we can give opportunities to emerging leaders to get that practical experience before they're in role, just to helps us all. And I think it's also the reverse. It's helping some of us that have been in role for a longer period of time to see the fresh perspectives of what's possible. Over time, sometimes we've seen things fail so many times that we're afraid to go back and try it again. But we need to always be thinking like there might be a better way to do this, and those fresh perspectives really help us with that.
Thank you so much, Lori. Would anybody else care to share their perspective?
Yeah, I can give it a try there. As I mentioned earlier, our perspective is a little different. No, we work basically in developing countries. So in our experiences, and I'm glad that's not the case here in the US, is that academia and industry do not necessarily work together. So university have curriculum that are outdated or not adapted to what the requirements of the industries are, and the requirements are also changing. So what we often do, or sometimes do in countries where it's needed, we create this advisory committees. I assume you have an advisory committee where the industry sits, so the association, but also different companies working together with the university to look at curriculum, change them, or do new ones. But also then have these internship programs that also often sometimes don't exist, and also challenge back or channel back requests for research that students can do for the industry. In other aspects, maybe it's not again the case in the US, is this collaboration industry academia is also to create a positive image of the industry, because in many of the producing countries, the textiles and clothing industry is not, the image is not that very good. No, it's the typical image of polluting and exploiting workers. There are still challenges, of course, but the image maybe is even worse than the reality. So you also need to, if you would like to change the industry, and if you would like to help companies to do better, I think you also need good talent. And good talent comes only if they see the industry positively. So we're also trying to work together with the stakeholders to make this happen. What Cheng was mentioning in regard, okay, you have the collaboration with the brand side, with the retailer side in the US, and I mentioned it earlier. Kind of collaboration between northern and southern kind of academia would also be useful for students to understand the actual reality of manufacturers. How they work, how they operate, the environment they operate in, and the challenges they have in this environment, including for logistics and other stuff. This could also be an interesting idea. What other things academia and other what we call business support organization maybe can do is also, I think it was mentioned earlier, this avalanche of regulations in the US moving from federal or less federal, but more state level makes it even more complex. So companies need someone who takes track of all these changes, of this avalanche of changes. And maybe they could create a kind of an observatory for the industry to help them to better understand what's coming and how to prepare for this. A little bit, it reminds me of 2005 or the years before 2005 of the quota phase out, where nobody was prepared, not saying nobody, but the preparation was not optimal in many countries. And then comes the big awakening of no quotas anymore, and the big companies, the big countries taking over the business. I have a little feeling it's a little similar here with all these other regulations coming up, especially in Europe. But if it's moving to the state level in the US, it's also becoming a challenge, not only for Macy's or others, but also for suppliers of Macy's that need to also be in the loop of understanding all this, what's coming. And I think academia has a role to play here.
Thank you so much.
And can I just add briefly, I mean, so from an association perspective, certainly I'm committed that we can engage as much as possible with students today, with academia, whether it's University of Delaware, with FIT, Kent State, with other academic institutions that have retail or other types of programs. We want to engage. Obviously, Gen Z are important customers, but also the future for the organization. And one thing that I think we all have seen is how important it is. Maybe you don't have a full course that's on sustainability, but it's so important for you to come out and understand when there's the conversation about sustainability or the job interview for a position that includes sustainability, that students are aware of the breadth of the issues, right? So it's not just federal, it's state. What does sustainability mean? There's a lot of different definitions. What is circularity? So that you're ready to go if you're working with Lori or you're working with Megan, that they know you may not have all the details for how they're going to run it in the company, but you're aware of the issues. And I think that's a role that associations and our members can play as well, and something that we're really committed to. So we're looking forward to more engagement.
Thank you so much. Megan, would you like to add?
I don't know if I can follow those three, to be honest.
No worries, no worries.
But overall, I mean, I just really appreciate, I think the theme of collaboration is a big one that we've talked about for the past hour. And I really appreciate everyone's perspective on how we can help Gen Z as they're coming onto the workforce, because I think that's really important. And I loved the note of like, they are our customers, but they're also the future of this industry.
Thank you so much. And once again, as somebody who is Gen Z myself, I think one of the biggest takeaways that I have taken from this specific call is really the need for collaboration. But as an individual and speaking on behalf of Gen Z, I think one of the biggest things I also have taken away is that we should be willing and eager to take on roles that are different than we might normally. So, that's why I'm very passionate and fell in love with trade, compliance, legislation, things like that. But after hearing Matthias speak, I also think that we really do forget about manufacturing and understanding that. And for me, I always say to people that I want to change the world. And I think in order to do that, I need to participate in the world. So it's been awesome to be on this call. And I definitely have a list of to-dos that I have to execute on as well. So if that's all, as we wrap up this insightful discussion, I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our esteemed panelists for sharing their expertise and perspectives on the future of sustainable and responsible sourcing. Your dedication to driving positive change in the fashion and apparel industry is truly inspiring. To our audience, thank you for joining us today. We hope that this conversation sparks new ideas and encourages continued dialogue and action. Let's keep pushing forward toward a more sustainable future together. Thank you so much.